They fenced off 15 acres of my best grazing land. Didn't ask, didn't call, didn't even pretend it might be a mistake worth fixing fast. So I locked up 7 of their cars and let the clock do what it does best. 30 days later, they owed me 15 grand just to get their wheels back, and that still wasn't the real bill. Name's Cole Mercer. I'm 49, born and raised out in Stillwater County, Montana, same land my granddad broke his back on back, when fences meant something and a handshake still counted. I run about 80 acres now, not big by Montana standards, but enough to keep a herd steady and a man honest. Mornings start with frost on the grass, coffee that tastes like burnt hope, and the low sound of cattle shifting before the sun burns the chill off the hills. That land isn't just dirt to me. It's memory, it's work, it's 3 generations buried into soil that doesn't forgive laziness. Now on my eastern boundary, things changed a couple years back. Used to be open range, rolling and quiet, but then came the trucks, the cranes, the kind of construction noise that doesn't belong out here. A tech couple out of California bought up the adjoining parcel, dropped something like $12 million on what they called a retreat, glass walls, steel frames, infinity pool that looked like it didn't belong in the same state as my barbed wire fences, even put in a helipad like they were expecting guests to fly in for brunch. I remember the first time I met them. Well, met is generous. I was mending a fence line when a black SUV rolled up, window cracked just enough for a voice to come out without letting any dust in. Guy inside, mid-40s, clean haircut, sunglasses that probably cost more than my monthly feed bill. He goes, "Hey, just so you know, we'll be upgrading the perimeter soon." Didn't ask, didn't explain, just said it like he was telling me the weather. I tipped my hat, said, "Long as you know where your land ends." And he gave me this smile. Not friendly, not hostile, just the kind of smile people give when they assume they're already right. I didn't think much of it then, figured folks like that come and go, play rancher for a season, get bored, sell it off. But they didn't go anywhere. They built higher, shinier, louder, and they kept to themselves, which honestly suited me just fine. Until one morning in May. Sky was clear, kind of blue that makes you forget trouble exists. I was pushing about 40 head across the eastern stretch, moving them slow so they wouldn't spook, when I saw it. At first it didn't make sense, like my eyes needed a second to catch up. A line where there shouldn't be one. Steel, tall, clean wrong. I rode closer and there it was, 8-foot steel fencing running straight across my pasture, like someone drew a line with a ruler and didn't bother asking whose map they were using. It cut through about 15 acres, my best grass, the kind that fattens cattle without you having to think twice. The herd stopped before I did. Animals always know when something ain't right. They bunched up, confused, lowing soft like they were asking me what the hell happened overnight. I dismounted, walked the line, ran my hand along that cold steel, brand new, not a scratch on it. Every post sunk deep, professionally done, no question about that. Then I saw the sign zip-tied near one of the posts, laminated, clean, legal language stamped all over it. Private property. Surveying discrepancy under review. Under review. I stood there a long minute. Wind moving through the grass behind me, cattle shifting, and that fence just sitting there like it belonged. So I went back to the house, pulled out the old documents, county plats from '62 with my granddad's signature still on them, faded ink, but clear lines. I laid them out on the kitchen table, same table my dad used to pay bills on, and I traced those boundaries with my finger like I'd done 100 times before. Then I checked GPS, modern, precise, no room for interpretation. Same answer both times. They didn't just get close, they were sitting square on my land. Now here's the thing about folks who grow up out here. We don't rush into anger. You learn early that most problems can be solved with a conversation, maybe a handshake, maybe a firm word if needed. So I figured I'd give them that chance. I drove over to their place that afternoon, long paved road leading up to their gate, smooth as glass, didn't belong in cattle country. Gate itself was one of those smart ones, cameras, keypad, whole deal. I hit the intercom, waited. A woman's voice came through, calm, detached. "Yes," I said. "This is Cole Mercer from next door. I need to speak with whoever put that fence up across my pasture." Pause, just long enough to feel intentional. Then she goes, "Our surveyors have already reviewed the boundary. If you have concerns, you can contact our legal team." Legal team. I leaned a little closer to the speaker and said, "Ma'am, your fence is sitting on my land. I've got documents older than your house proving it." This isn't a legal team conversation. It's a neighbor conversation. Another pause, longer this time. Then the line clicked dead. No meeting. No discussion. Just silence wrapped in money. I sat there in my truck for a bit, engine idling, looking at that gate, thinking about how easy it is for people with enough cash to skip the part where they treat others like equals. Then something clicked in my head. Not anger. Not exactly. More like clarity. Because on the drive in, I noticed something I hadn't really paid attention to before. That nice, smooth road they built, the only road leading in or out of their property, ran straight across my land. And not just a little corner, about 200 feet of it, right through a strip my grandmother had signed an easement for back in 1968. Month-to-month terms, never sold, never permanent. Just neighborly access, back when neighbors still talked. I drove home slow, slower than usual. Not because I was unsure, but because I was starting to see the shape of things. They built a fence assuming I wouldn't push back. They built a road assuming I couldn't. And somewhere along the way, they forgot one simple truth about land out here. Ownership doesn't care how much money you have. It only cares whose name is on the line. By the time I pulled into my yard, I wasn't thinking about their fence anymore. I was thinking about their road. And for the first time since I saw that steel cutting through my pasture, I smiled a little. I didn't rush it. That's the first thing people get wrong when they hear this story. They think I snapped, went straight for revenge, but that's not how you survive out here. You move steady. You think things through. You let the other side keep underestimating you while you figure out exactly where the ground is solid beneath your feet. That road of theirs smooth, expensive, probably the nicest stretch of pavement for 10 miles in any direction. It cut clean across my property like it had every right to be there. And for years I'd let it slide because my grandmother believed in neighborly agreements, month-to-month access, no fuss, no contracts thicker than a Bible. But that kind of trust only works when both sides remember it exists. And these folks, they'd replaced trust with assumption. So I dug up the easement papers, same drawer as the old plats, yellowed edges, my grandmother's handwriting still neat as ever, month to month, revocable at any time. No purchase, no permanent rights, just permission. And permission, well, that can be taken back. Next morning I called the county clerk, a woman named Diane who's been there longer than I've been paying taxes, knows every inch of paperwork like it's family history. I said, "Diane, I need to confirm something about a 1968 easement on my east boundary." And she didn't even hesitate, just said, "Cole, if it's Mercer land, I already know which one you're talking about." That's how it is in small counties. Records aren't just files, they're stories people remember. She pulled it up, read it out loud, month to month. Revocable with notice, no transfer of ownership. I asked her straight, "If I terminate it today, what happens?" She paused, then said, "Then legally, they don't have access to a public road." I leaned back in my chair, stared out the window at my pasture, at that line of steel cutting across it, and I said, "All right, that's what I needed to know." She didn't ask why, didn't pry, just said, "You do it clean, Cole," and I told her I would. That afternoon, I drafted the notice, nothing fancy, just clear language, respectful but firm, terminating the easement effective immediately. Drove it over myself, taped it right on their smart gate where no one could pretend they didn't see it. Then I went back home, hitched up the trailer, and loaded up the heaviest steel gate I had, 8 feet tall, solid, the kind you don't move unless you mean it. Sun was dropping low by the time I got back to that stretch of road, shadows long across the dirt, air cooling off just enough to carry the smell of cut hay. I set the posts deep, took my time, made sure everything was level, secure, no shortcuts. By the time I bolted that gate into place, it looked like it had always been there, like the road had always ended exactly where I decided it did. Then I hung the sign. Private road. $500 per vehicle, per day. Unauthorized use subject to storage and abandonment statutes. People laugh when they hear that part, think it's overkill, but I wasn't bluffing, not for a second. I'd already looked up the county codes, knew exactly how long a vehicle had to sit before it could be classified as abandoned, knew the forms, the timelines, all of it. If they wanted to play this through lawyers, I was ready to meet them right there, just on rules they didn't write. Behind their gate sat 7 vehicles, 3 Teslas lined up like they were posing for a brochure, 2 Range Rovers, a Porsche Cayenne, and a contractor's F-350 that looked like it actually knew what dirt was. All of them suddenly, not going anywhere. The only way in or out was through that stretch of land I owned. And now, through a gate I controlled. I went home, washed up, ate dinner like any other night. But I'll admit, there was a certain quiet satisfaction settling in, not loud, not vengeful, just the feeling of things balancing out. Next morning, I filed the notification with the sheriff's office, abandoned vehicle process, formal, documented, timestamped. Deputy Harris looked it over, raised an eyebrow, said, "You sure you want to kick this hornet's nest, Cole?" I shrugged, said they kicked it first. He nodded, stamped the paperwork, and just like that, the clock started ticking. Day 3, nothing. Day 5, still nothing. I kept working like usual, feeding, checking fences, moving cattle away from that steel line they'd put up, making a note of how much grazing I was losing. By day 7, that's when the first letter came. Overnight courier, thick envelope, law firm out of Billings, billing rate printed right on the header like it was supposed to impress me. Demands, threats, language polished to sound intimidating without saying anything real. Cease and desist, unlawful interference, immediate removal of obstruction, the usual dance. I read it once, folded it back up, and set it on the table. Then I wrote my response, not on fancy letterhead, just plain paper. I listed the trespass, the unauthorized fencing, the loss of grazing land, and the current storage fees for 7 vehicles, $15,000 for 30 days. Then I added new easement terms, $2,500 a month, 99-year minimum, and a clause I'd spent half the night thinking through, adverse action reversal. If they ever again claimed my land as theirs, every agreement we signed would void instantly. No gray area, no wiggle room. I mailed it out same day. Couple days later, I saw them for the first time since all this started. The man, same sunglasses, same posture, but there was something different now, a stiffness, like he wasn't used to being on the wrong side of a situation. He stood at the gate, looking at the lock, then at the sign, then at me as I walked up. He said, "You're making a mistake." Not angry, just certain, like he still believed this would bend his way eventually. I leaned on the fence post and said, "No, I think you did, when you put steel on land that isn't yours." He exhaled, slow, controlled. "Our survey shows." I cut him off, not raising my voice, just firm. "Your survey doesn't change my deed." That hung there for a second, wind moving between us, quiet except for the hum of whatever system powered their gate behind him. He glanced back at his cars, then at the road, then back at me. "This is going to get expensive," he said. I nodded. "Already is." He didn't like that. You could see it, the shift from confidence to calculation. But instead of pushing further, he just turned and walked back up the road, like he needed to rethink the script he came in with. By day 14, things started tightening for them. I got a call from the county assessor, voice low, careful. "Cole, did you terminate that easement?" I said yes. He sighed, said, "They've got permits tied to that property. Without legal access to a public road, they can't get a certificate of occupancy." I didn't say anything, just let him finish. And without that, their construction loan could default. There it was, the part they hadn't considered. Out here, paperwork matters just as much as land, sometimes more. That night, I sat on my porch, watching the sun drop behind the hills, thinking about how this had escalated not because I wanted it to, but because they left no room for anything else. I didn't enjoy the pressure they were under, but I wasn't about to carry the weight of their assumptions either. Day 18, another letter, less aggressive this time, more flexible. Language shifting, tone softening. They wanted to discuss resolution. I let it sit a day before responding. No rush. Day 21, Deputy Harris stopped by again, leaned against the fence, looked toward that locked gate, and said, "You know you're clear to proceed with lien auction if it goes the full term." I nodded, said, "I know." He studied me for a second, then said, "Most folks would have folded by now." I shrugged, said, "Most folks didn't have their land taken." He gave a small smile at that, tipped his hat, and headed out. By then, the pressure wasn't building on my side anymore. It was building on theirs. Every day those vehicles sat there, every day that road stayed closed, the cost wasn't just money, it was control slipping, plans unraveling, timelines collapsing. And I could feel it, like a storm rolling in slow, inevitable, nothing you can do but watch it arrive. By day 28, I knew they were going to show up again. They just didn't know yet that this time, the conversation wasn't going to be theirs to lead. By day 28, the air felt different, not just out on the land, but in the way things were settling into place, like a long argument that's finally run out of words and is about to end one way or another. I woke up before sunrise that morning, same as always, poured myself coffee, stepped out onto the porch, and just stood there for a minute, listening. No wind, no trucks, no distant construction noise from their place. Just quiet, the kind that makes you pay attention. And I remember thinking, this is probably the last calm morning before something gives. I didn't have to wait long. They came just after noon. No convoy this time. No contractors, no lawyers stepping out first with folders and attitudes, just the two of them. He drove. She sat in the passenger seat, both of them looking a little out of place the second they stepped onto dirt that wasn't manicured or designed. Their shoes told that story real quick, dust settling where it didn't belong. I was already by the gate when they pulled up, leaning against the post like I'd been there all day. Truth is, I had a feeling they'd come, just didn't know when. He got out first, took a second to look around, not at the fence, not at the lock, but at the land. Really look at it this time. Funny how perspective changes when you don't control the road anymore. He walked up slow, stopped a few feet from me, hands in his pockets like he was trying to keep things casual, but there was tension in his shoulders, the kind you don't fake. She stayed a step behind him, arms crossed, not defensive exactly, more like she was bracing for whatever this was going to be. He spoke first, voice quieter than before, stripped of that edge he had the last time. What's it going to take? No speech, no legal talk, just that. I let that sit for a second, not to drag it out, just to make sure we were finally having the same conversation. Then I pushed off the post, reached into my truck, and pulled out the folder I'd brought with me. Papers already signed on my end. Terms laid out clean, nothing hidden. I handed it to him. Everything you need is in there. He flipped it open right there, scanning faster than someone who's used to contracts, but slower than someone who's comfortable. His eyes moved, stopped, moved again. Then he turned a page, and I could see exactly where it hit him. Page 3. That clause, he said, tapping the paper, looking up at me. You're serious about this? I met his eyes and said, I was serious when I told you the fence was on my land. Silence again, but different this time. Not tension building, tension settling. He looked back down, read it again, slower. The reversal clause wasn't complicated. If they ever claimed, built on, or restricted my land again, everything we signed would collapse instantly. Easement gone, access gone, no second chances. It wasn't about money. It was about making sure this never circled back. She stepped forward then, finally speaking for the first time. You're asking for 99 years. I nodded. You built like you're staying that long. That one landed not hard, but honest. She glanced at him, and there was a whole conversation in that look. The kind people have when they realize the version of control they thought they had isn't coming back. He closed the folder halfway, exhaled through his nose, and said, $15,000 for the vehicles, $2,500 a month, and this clause. And removal of the fence. I added, calm, like we were discussing weather. And compensation for lost grazing. He looked at me again, this time with something closer to respect than resistance. How much? 50,000, I said. He didn't flinch the way people usually do at that number. He just nodded slowly, like he was recalculating everything in his head. Not whether he could afford it, but whether it was worth fighting anymore. We stood there for a while, no one rushing it, no one filling the silence just to feel better. Out here, you learn that silence isn't empty, it's where decisions get made. Finally, he opened the folder again, pulled a pen from his jacket, and signed. Just like that. No ceremony, no speech, just ink on paper, clean and final. She signed next. I took the folder back, checked the pages, closed it, and said, You've got 4 days to take that fence down. He gave a small nod. It'll be gone by then. And that was it. No handshake. Not because I wouldn't have, but because this wasn't that kind of agreement. This wasn't neighborly anymore. It was understood. They left the same way they came. Quiet, controlled, but different. Not defeated, just aware now. Aware that land doesn't bend just because you expect it to. The next 4 days, I watched it all come down. Crews showed up early, worked late, pulled every post, every panel, stacked them neat by the edge of my property like they were returning something they borrowed and finally realized wasn't theirs. I didn't interfere, didn't supervise, just let them do what should have been done in the first place. They brought in a surveyor too, my surveyor. Same guy who'd worked with my dad years back, knew those boundaries better than anyone. Concrete markers went in every 50 feet. Permanent, visible, no room for interpretation ever again. By the time day 29 rolled around, the land looked like itself again. Grass already starting to breathe where it had been blocked off, cattle moving back into that space like they never left, like they trusted it again before I even fully did. That morning, I walked down to the gate, same one I'd set a month earlier, ran my hand along the steel, felt the weight of it, the purpose it served. Then I unlocked it, slow, no rush, swung it open, and stepped back. Didn't feel like victory the way people imagine it. No rush, no triumph. Just balance, like something that had been tilted finally leveled out. Their vehicles were gone by then, cleared out the day before, no drama, no drawn-out exit. Just empty space where they'd been sitting, waiting. I stood there a while, looking down that road, still smooth, still expensive, still not quite belonging to the land it crossed. But now, at least, it respected it. And off to the side, near my barn, those fence posts they pulled out were stacked in a long, quiet pile. Steel, clean, and used now, a reminder more than anything else. Funny thing is, people who hear this story always want to know if I felt bad. If I thought maybe I pushed too hard, asked too much, took it too far. Truth is, I've thought about that. Not in a guilty way, more in a curious one. Because out here, there's a line between standing your ground and making a point, and sometimes, those two look the same depending on which side you're standing on. They never spoke to me again after that, not a word. And I didn't go looking for one either. We coexist now, same land, same sky, same boundaries, just a clearer understanding of where those boundaries are. But every now and then, I wonder, if I had walked away that first day, let the fence sit there, let them keep those 15 acres, would it have stayed just 15? Or would it have grown, inch by inch, assumption by assumption, until there wasn't much left to stand on at all? That's the part people don't agree on. So I'll leave it with you. Was it justice, or was it just me refusing to lose something that was never theirs to begin with? You tell me.